This topic is called solving equations involving vertical angles and linear pairs. So you need to know what those terms mean. Vertical angles mean that when you have two lines that crisscross, they're going to be opposite each other. So these here would be vertical angles. They would be equal to each other. These here are also vertical angles, and they are also equal to each other. So that's a special relationship between vertical angles. They're congruent. Linear pairs are angles that are next to each other, and they add up to 180 degrees. So when we have another, here's just another example. If we have this here and this here, these are linear pairs. And so together they would add up to 180 degrees. So then same thing here. If we have this here and this here, that's another linear pair that adds up to 180 degrees. So there's all different combinations of 180 degrees you can get from two lines. So linear pairs add up to 180, vertical angles are equal. Those are the take-home messages. You might want to write that down. So you have to look at the picture and kind of see what's going on. A couple things we could look at are these two things, but we have an x and a z when we go to set up an equation. That's a linear pair. We could add them and set them to 180 degrees, but we have an x and a z, and I don't know how to solve that at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this here. That's another set of linear pair, right? That adds up to 180 degrees. So I can do 72 plus 13x plus 20. And those two together have to be 180 degrees. On the left-hand side of our equation here, we're going to add our like terms. 72 plus 20 is going to give us 92. Now that we have all our like terms taken care of, we're going to start getting the x by itself. So we're going to see the 92 is in the wrong side of the equation. To bring it to the other, we're going to undo the addition. And we undo addition by subtracting out. And then when we do our subtraction of 180 minus 92, on this side we are going to have an 88. And on this side the only thing we have left is 13x. So to solve this equation, to get the x by itself, we have to undo the multiplication. And then when we divide that by 13, ooh, that's not a very nice number. X will equal 6.77. I rounded it up a little bit. I may have copied the problem wrong because usually these come out to be pretty. Just double checking my work really quick. 92, yeah, equals 180 divided by 13. Okay, that's fine. So we get an ugly answer, but that's okay. They want us to find the values of x and z. So the x we plugged into an equation, figured out that value. When we look at z, we could notice that it is this angle z is vertical to this, so that means that they're vertical angles, which means that they're equal. So that one really almost had no math. It's what I call pure geometry. You're looking at a picture, you're making an assumption that they are vertical angles, and you know that they are equal to each other, so that's how you get to that answer. It's geometry, kind of logic-based. So, all right, let's look at another one. This equation here is, or sorry, this picture here, we're probably going to follow the same sort of thing to solve for x and z. We're going to set up some equations. I always like to look for the verticals, which are these guys, but again, they give us an x and a z, so like I like to set things equal to each other. It seems a little bit easier. So I'm looking for a linear pair that has the same like variable, and I can see that these guys here are a linear pair. They both have x's, so linear pairs add up to 180. So 6x plus 6 added to 14x minus 66 has to be 180 degrees because that's what linear pairs do. So I'm going to look for my x terms. I have 6x added to 14x. That gives me 20x. I have a positive 6 minus 66. So when I combine those, I get minus 60. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start getting everything away from the x. So on the left-hand side, I have a minus 60, and I want to bring that 60 over to 180. So I'm going to undo the minusing by adding. That's going to give me 240. The only thing I have left on the left-hand side now is a 20x. That's a multiplying. Undo multiplication by division. And then when I divide it out, I get 12. X is going to be 12. So we got half our battle here. It said to find x and find z. We know that x is 12. To find z, again, we can go back to these vertical angles here. If we can put in x of 12 right there, we can evaluate what this angle is, and then z has to be equal to it. So we know that 6x plus 6 is that angle. We now know that x is 12. 6 times 12 is 72. And when I add those up, I get 78. So if this here is 78 degrees, I'm going to use blue. If this guy here is 78 degrees, this guy here has to be 78 degrees. So that's our value for Z, because they are vertical and vertical angles are equal. All right, I hope this helped.